Snooker has changed. Over the past decade, it has transformed into a truly global sport. And in an age of more choice than ever, this grand, eccentric game has proved a lot of people wrong and earned millions of new fans across the planet. It's a commercial success story that needs told, and I'm about to tell it. From where the sport came from to where it's going, and how it's all tied into the ambitious aspirations of the World Snooker Tour.
Snooker is now a global game.
More people than ever have the chance to watch snooker.
It's elegant, it's clever, it's fascinating to watch.
I can't explain it unless you've been in the room.
There's no better sport to watch.
But whether we're talking about road shows, whether we're talking about kids coaching, we have to push the boundaries.
This break going.
Well, what a pot this is. What a pot this is.
Unbelievable. A star is born.
So here's the history lesson. Snooker was invented in 1875 by British Army officers in a town called Jabalpur in India. A young lieutenant called Neville Chamberlain, not that one, was experimenting on the officers' mess table, trying to come up with a game that had red balls and coloured balls, and he invented the game we now know and love. So why snooker? Well, that was the nickname given to rookie cadets in the British Army, so Neville thought, as nobody's ever played this game before, we're all snookers. He called it that, and it stuck. In the early part of the 20th century, the key figure for the development of the game was Joe Davis. Not only did he win the inaugural World Championship in 1927, he bought the very trophy that is still handed out today.
We've got through it all, and for another year, at any rate, I'm pretty safe.
He went on to win 15 world titles, and in that first ever one, 1927, the prize, £6 and 10 shillings. That's a little shy of what Judd Trump won in 2019, £500,000. What connects Davis and Trump? Both not known for buying around. An historic date in the history of snooker is 1969. That's when the BBC first televised it. So why did they pick this curious game? Simple. Colour television. They wanted something that showed just how glorious it was. And who was the man responsible for putting snooker on the telly? None other than David Attenborough. He was directly responsible for the global warming of the sport. Coverage of the World Championship actually began in the late 70s, and as we crept into the 80s, the sport exploded. It was simply the biggest game in Britain.
It's all over. Steve Davis then continues his tapestry of titles.
I think it's hard to now envisage what it was like back in the 80s as a snooker player. There were only 3 television channels when the 80s turned, so we had a trapped audience. And I don't suppose BBC, when they decided to commit to more than just pot black, realised what a monster they were going to have on their hands when they signed off the World Championship in its 2-week entirety a la Wimbledon. But in a very short space of time, they realised that the game was out of control. People were loving what they saw. Plenty of people that had never really walked into a snooker club were starting to become fans of the game. And then for the rest of the 80s, we were in an amazing position as snooker players to have not really had that much popularity and exposure and recognition to becoming overnight pop stars.
Alex Higgins, Jimmy White, Steve Davis, Cliff Thorburn, everybody had their favourite. And so many moments in that decade went down in the annals of sporting history, but none was bigger than 1985 and the Black Ball final.
The defending world champion, Steve Davis. No. And this is really unbelievable.
Into the 90s and a new wave of players emerged, taking the game to an entirely new level. And one man, a certain Stephen Hendry, swept almost everything before him. But in 1992, we gave birth to the golden generation. Ronnie O'Sullivan, John Higgins and Mark Williams all turned professional, and they would go on to become multiple world champions.
The 1991 Masters champion, Stephen Hendry.
Ronnie O'Sullivan, ladies and gentlemen.
John Higgins!
But as the new millennium came, the sport was left behind. Sponsors were lost, tournaments fell by the wayside. The annual prize pot for an entire season of snooker was just 3.5 million, which meant even some of the top players were part-time, with months between tournaments.
Very tough for a young player, especially from Australia, deciding whether or not I need to commit my life to this, because the sport was very up and down with sponsorship. The amount of tournaments as well, you never really knew how many you were going to get each season. I think the season I won the World Championship, we only had 6 tournaments. I mean, I won 2 of them, so that doesn't leave very much for the other players.
By 2009, the circuit was at an all-time low, and the players decided enough was enough. They voted out that administration, and they brought in a man who, in sporting terms, can perform miracles.
Things were so bad at one stage that enough players had seen what Barry Hearn had done in darts and went, why haven't we got this guy running our game?
It was a scary time. I mean, it was a time built around complacency, built around the memory of where the game was in its peak in the 80s and early 90s. It was a statement of mismanagement and also complacency, you know, by the players themselves as well as the management.
It was unfinished business for him, because over the years of watching what he thought was a wonderful game sport just messed around with, I think he wanted to prove that he could do a good job, and that's where he started off. They were his roots, so he wanted to have one crack at it.
The sport had lost its way and forgotten what made it a great sport in the first place, which was excellence and personality. It was a relatively easy job to bring it back from the brink.
The UK is falling in love with snooker again. Now, it's not quite a marriage made in heaven yet, but the fans in the sport are dating again and having fun. In Britain alone, there are 11 tournaments in the calendar. And as for the biggest ones, they're the hottest tickets in sport.
Snooker is now a global game, and we are seeing players from all over the world join in this wonderful journey to establish snooker once again at the very peak of professional sport.
All the tournaments are really well sponsored, fantastic prize money for all the players, not just the top players, but all the players all the way down the rankings have a fair opportunity to earn a living. And yeah, and that's where snooker needs to be.
When you see someone like Judd coming into the game and the amount of tournaments he's got and the amount of money he's winning, you would love to be starting out again. But no, listen, you never ever look back on things, and I've had a good career, but the incentives are there for all the players just now, especially younger ones.
But it's internationally where the most significant growth has come. For the first time in snooker's history, it's rivaling sports like golf and tennis in terms of the amount of countries where it is played and watched.
snooker is growing at an all-time rate, really. Some of the figures that they're getting on TV and the new people involved, a lot more sort of people taking it on, different countries and different platforms taking it on, so more people than ever have the chance to watch snooker, and I think that's only going to get bigger over the next 5 or 10 years.
The World Championships in April will be available either linear or digital to every single country in the world, and we've never been able to say that before.
The first big spark came in 2005 when Ding Junhui, celebrating his 18th birthday that week, won the China Open against none other than Stephen Hendry.
I knew he was going to be a dangerous opponent. I expected to win. I had no thoughts about losing the final. I thought, okay, this is a young talent, he's coming out, he's going to be great for the game in the future, but there's no way he's beating me tomorrow.
I think I played very well in that whole week. And the first few frames I was 4-1 down, so I think Hendry is unbeatable.
But more importantly, that year he'd win one of the 3 Triple Crown events, the UK Championship, as he sled another legend in Steve Davis.
I was having my own resurgence. It was brilliant for me to get to the final, and then I'm playing this young kid who's destined for greater things. And there was a possibility I could have beaten him because he was raw and inexperienced. As it was, he was sort of ready to win something.
Steve played quite well in that tournament. I was from qualifying. In the final, it was like I know him safety very good, and I just try to score every frame, see how much I can, and get in front first. Actually, I played good at that time, and concentration good. And in my mind, started thinking too much after winning the China Open, and I don't feel that much pressure for me.
The impact in China was huge. 100 million people were now tuned into the sport to watch a new national hero.
We had champions from the Far East before Ding, but I think he was the one that was the first superstar that we saw coming through.
After the 2005, I won 2 titles, and everyone's interested in the game. Everyone's looking to play the snooker again, and also there's many young players. They're still playing now. In that time, they're joining snooker.
This young superstar was now on the crest of a wave, and all across China, youngsters wanted to be Ding Junhui. The grassroots and amateur structures in China are now the best in the world, and that's why 12 of the youngest 14 players who are currently playing professional snooker are from China, and many of them are based in Sheffield at Victoria She's Snooker Academy.
At the moment, I have 14, and more coming each year because I must be doing something good. And also you can see like Bing Tao win the first title this year, and Xin Tong play well, Yuelong play well. Like I think I always want to create the atmosphere, like they feel like home. I'm like the manager, and even their mom. They come so far away and pursue their dreams. My job is to help them, make them happy and settled, and then they can enjoy their snooker.
We didn't know what was going to happen in China. Nobody, I think, could have foreseen the viewing figures they're getting, or how they've taken the game to their hearts, and how, a proper sports industry has opened up over there.
Snooker was first televised on Eurosport in 2003, and while millions upon millions of people watched it in the UK in the 80s, this time it was different. It took hold across an entire continent, and as I stand here today, snooker is broadcast live regularly in over 50 countries.
I think there's more people watching it on Eurosport in telly than playing at the moment because game is so hard. And hopefully we are a good example for players to show that we can get on tour. Players from obviously Eastern Europe or Middle Europe can get on tour, so it's possible and more players going to play.
The Tempodrom venue in Berlin hosts one of snooker's most beautiful and biggest events of the season. If only Germany could find snooker's answer to Boris Becker or Michael Schumacher, the popularity of the sport would grow massively.
I've been visiting the Tempodrom every year at the German Masters too, and the crowd is always completely full. Same at the Polante Classic in Fürth. I've been there a few times now, and every time it's scintillating. It's so many people in there, and players play good shots. If everybody claps, or that's just a great atmosphere. And I hope that I will play there one time. Yeah.
In Thailand, James Watana carried the hopes of a nation on his back in the 1990s. But today, that mantle has been taken up by two electric young players, Nopon Sangkam and Tepchaya Anu.
That's a fantastic little shot again. No tightening of the back arm there and going into 60. The pink on the way through the gap.
Well, it's just an exhibition of talent, isn't it?
Nicknamed the Speed Demon, Anu is the fastest player on the tour, and he can make a century break in the time it used to take Terry Griffiths to chalk his cue.
Snooker sport in Thailand now come back to popular again since 30 years ago. The James Watana did many years ago, and many supporter fans following me on Facebook. A lot, nearly 100,000 people, and nearly 2 million people watching when a Thai player play on the live on TV.
In 2013, nearly 140 years after good old Neville invented the sport of snooker, it returned to its roots. The first ever world ranking event in India. And with a population of over 1 billion, the opportunities are vast.
The problem with countries like India is that they serve one god, and he's called cricket. And if we could just steal a little bit of attention away from cricket, I think we could burst into a market there that could rival the Chinese market, because snooker and billiards started in India. Let's not forget that. And they're still very proud of that. I speak to a lot of Indian people all the time, and they're aware that snooker was created in that part of the world. And that's a part of history that we shouldn't forget.
In the Middle East, Iran has embraced snooker. The sport was actually banned there until the year 2000. Fast forward to this very moment, and there's over 1,000 thriving snooker clubs, and Hussein Fafai has a massive following.
Snooker getting very popular in Iran because every day growing. 2 weeks ago we had a ranking tournament like for amateur Iran National Championship, which they have to qualify from 27 county, and then 32 players come out. They have to come and travel to the capital to play each other. So that means this game is popular when they organize a tournament like that.
Next season, Saudi Arabia will host the richest snooker event of all time, with prize money totalling £2.5 million. That's more than the World Championship.
Saudi Arabia as a country is spending huge amounts of money bringing major sporting events, and I think we should be honoured that we're inclusive of that package. We can do a lot in Saudi Arabia, whether it's down to academies for youngsters, whether it's training officials, all through the WPBSA. We have that infrastructure. But most important of all, from our players' perspective, they've got the biggest prize money event in the world to play in, another $500,000 to the winner, another $2.5 million in the pot, and the beauty is it's a 10-year deal.
Snooker is growing in India. We've had a professional tournament here since 2013 with the Indian Open.
Türkiye snooker'ı seviyor.
Россия любит snooker.
Gal adora snooker.
Polska kocha snookera.
Norge elsker snooker.
Suomi rakastaa snookeria.
Magyarország imádja a snooker.
Deutschland liebt Snooker und auch Österreich und die Schweiz lieben Snooker.
In Italia noi amiamo lo snooker.
Nederland is snookerloopy.
Snooker's current global popularity has gone hand in hand with a special generation of players. There's certainly more strength and depth than ever, but many fans would say the sport today is faster, more dramatic and more electric than it has ever been. Although there will only ever be one Alex Higgins. Let's not get carried away.
Anyone in sort of the top 100 now can win an event. Anyone can sort of make a century break or beat anyone at any given time. And I think that's what's so exciting. You see the top players have sort of bad spells where they struggle to win games because the standard is so good, and all these players are trying to take our places in the top 16.
It attracts a certain intelligence from people that really enjoy snooker. You get people who just love to watch Ronnie Sullivan because of how fast he is and because of his personality. That attracts maybe a different type of person than maybe someone who really enjoys someone like Mark Selby. So I think you get a great mix of fans all around the world. You know, you get some sort of raving nutcases that just like love Jimmy White and all that. I remember going to the Masters and playing Jimmy there, and you know, it was like I was at a football match. You know, the screaming, the cheering, and everything. You know.
So what about the future? A lot of the global map is already lit up, but snooker will not rest on its bulk cushion. One of the priorities going forward is the North American market. Some say it's too slow for the Yanks, but baseball and NFL often last over 3 hours. Ronnie and Judd will just have to get used to rustling hot dog wrappers.
We're cracking into North America now. We've got a foot in North America. Very successful association over there running big amateur events. We're streaming into North America. I'd love to see that open up, you know, through Barry's connections with obviously the pool and the darts. You know, he's opened up Vegas and all of, you know, why can't we take snooker there? Wouldn't they like maybe a shootout style event or something like that? Who knows?
We need to educate the fans and teach them about the sport. You have to grow the personalities as well. You know, you have to make people aware of the stars and the characters of the game so they can start creating a following here as well. But it's difficult in America because you've got American football, you've got NHL hockey, you've got baseball, you've got basketball, and then you've got the college systems as well. So you're kind of beneath all those in the pecking order, and at the moment snooker's got a lot of work to do, but all you need is some positive signs. We need to make sure that Ronnie and Judd Trump and Selby, that the fans are aware of who the stars are, and then they'll be interested to watch them play.
Believe it or not, in South America, snooker already has a significant following. They play on a 3/4 size table, as the Nugget Steve Davis found out when he visited Brazil.
We got a phone call from Brazil. There's a guy out here in Brazil who's unbeaten at snooker. We want you, the world champion, just come over and beat him. He wears a hat. He said he won't take his hat off until he's beaten. Nobody can beat him. Nobody can touch him on TV. So we thought, okay, fair enough. So we went over to Brazil to play Rui Chapeau, the man with a hat. And when I landed and went to the snooker club, I was presented with a table about the size of a pool table, very tight pockets, only one red on the table, and totally different rules, a totally different game, still called snooker.
There was a professional tournament in Brazil in 2011, won by Sean Murphy, and the country's top player, Igor Figueiredo, currently competes on the World Tour. Last year, the African Games were staged in Morocco and the host nation dominated. They won gold in the men's, in the women's and the mixed doubles. Jason Ferguson, who's chairman of the sport's governing body, was in Casablanca and he believes it's the beginning of a beautiful friendship. So here's looking at him.
The African Games for me, it's a milestone for our sport. It's another milestone for another new territory. Very exciting. We've been working all over the world with snooker, as you know, and we saw an explosion of snooker in Asia. With snooker in the Asian Games, this opened up funding in various countries around Asia, China being one of those. We know how successful that market's been. You know, Africa is not dissimilar. There are over 50 countries in Africa, and yet we are only just scratching the surface of working in that territory. The African Games, which is the first step of our sports development programme in that territory, and is the beginning of us starting to work on the ground there.
Perhaps snooker's least talked about and greatest asset is actually its inclusivity. There is no barrier between men and women. It is open to everybody. In fact, there's not even a men's tour. People get that wrong all the time. The only criteria to play snooker is ability.
I've always played against the male players ever since I first started playing, so I use it as a big test, and if I can handle myself in that situation. Just as a snooker player, that's what you want to be. You want to be competing at the top, don't you? Looking forward for the future of women's snooker, it can only go forward.
I think before this century's close, a Chinese woman will come to dominate the world of snooker, and I think that's wonderful. You've got this sport that's traditionally been played by like white fellas in England, historically maybe. I know the history of snooker goes further back than that from other countries, but and you're going to think like there's probably like some young lass in China somewhere who's going to like whoop everybody. I think that's beautiful.
The WPBSA also runs the World Disability Billiards and Snooker Tour. 9 events and over 150 players.
Anyone can play. If you're a human being, you can play. So that's the way to do it. If it's something you enjoy, then keep going for it. And you can always set yourself targets in your own way, whether that be playing in a league, or whether that's competitions, or whether it's whatever you're playing, you know. So it's the scope for everybody, really.
Ultimately, when all is said and done, snooker is nothing without its fans. In fact, there's no sport in the world can survive without them. And when it comes to the biggest events, World Snooker has endeavoured to make those experiences more memorable and magical than ever.
You don't know what it's like to play snooker until you've played at the Crucible.
There's certain events in certain sports, the Masters at Augusta, you'd want to go and see a football match at Wembley, you'd want to go and see the rugby at Twickenham, and Crucible is, I mean, it's an amazing place. It's so, I mean, use the word intimate, you know, you feel like you're right there with the guys and you could hear a pin drop.
And when that hush descends...
Quiet, please.
Goose pimples, and I'm like, this is it now. I've seen it a million times. I can't explain it unless you've been in the room. There's some magic in air.
It's atmospheric without atmosphere. It's a slow boil to bringing up moments of intensity beyond normal imagination.
I can't imagine what it's like, you know, playing that shot to win the World Championships with everyone there, eyes on, no noise.
What a match, what a performance, and the family go berserk.
It's that edge of your seat stuff, it's that fingernail, you know, if you see that the match is kind of going to the wire.
It's intense from start to finish, and I just really admire the players and how they can keep focused and, you know, in the zone for that length of time. It's a real skill.
It just gets you, you can't miss it, you know, you want to watch the safety battles, you're there, you can't miss any. It's that thing what snooker does, you know, where it grabs you.
10 years ago, the perception of snooker was it was a dying sport. Today, it's acknowledged globally as a vibrant sport that's going to areas that we've never been to and paying their participants, the players, money they've never envisaged.
So there, in a nutshell, is the story of the sport of snooker. A past undoubtedly that cannot be forgotten, but a bright future that simply cannot be ignored.